Welcome to today's episode of the Just Call Dad podcast. I'm your host, Sean Patrick, aka Coach Sean Patrick, for all of those who have found this podcast from social media. And I'm excited today to just hop on here and do an update episode. We're calling again these episodes kind of like our morning mobility, or this idea of becoming more mobile in our minds. And today I am excited to tell you about how I'm working the new season out. And so tomorrow I am sitting down with somebody who I've looked up to for a long time. His name is Jared Moon. If you've not found his content yet, or his podcast, or anything about him, you need to do it. I found Jared first a long time ago, probably around 2014, 2015, and I was working out in my garage. So this episode of Morning Mobility, to give you kind of the theme, is do the work. And so I was trying to do the work. I was working out in my garage at the time. I lived in a small condo by myself with really not a lot of room to train, but it was cool. It was like a one-car garage, and I love training. I did some CrossFit style stuff during that time as well, and prior to that time, kind of coming out of college. And I really found this love for training in my garage. And, fitness at that point in my life was probably in a very unhealthy place. I just hadn't realized it yet, but I was training a whole lot and I loved it. It was therapeutic, and it still kind of is if I'm feeling healthy and up to it. But at that time, the garage became almost like a sanctuary for me, a place where I could get away from the noise of whatever was going on around me, but also what was going on in my head. And that's where that concept of do the work came from. And this idea that when we are going through different things in our life, sometimes we need to just work. So fast forward kind of a few years throughout this garage gym piece, I would follow the training. I went through Jared's coaching course, and I became a certified coach. And I never really did anything with that certification because I was coaching kids as a track coach, and I was teaching, and I got married, and we had 3 kids, and so I never really did anything with it. But I started this podcast for dads, and I always followed Jared's stuff. I listened to Jared's podcast, the Better Human Business podcast. It's actually kind of what got me thinking that maybe I could do some of this stuff on my own. I subscribed to his email list, and I just kind of look up to him as a dad. We're similar in age, but he's ahead of me in this game of being somebody who's taking their own shot or their own chance at life with the different businesses and things that he's a part of. And I would listen to his Garage Gym Athlete podcast, and then I got a chance to be featured on that podcast. I got to be on one of his episodes, and it was really cool. And what I realized when I was on that episode, it actually was funny. We were driving back. It was the last time that my wife and I were on a trip without the kids. And so we were with my family. We had to pull over at a Starbucks because we didn't get back in time, and I had to record the episode sitting in a Starbucks. And it was really interesting because if I listen back to that episode, I was doing the work at that time, and I'm proud of myself. I was talking about fitness and training and all these things, but I never really knew what the work was until I became a dad, until I became somebody who had to take care of people every single day. And not only people, but these little people that are mine, right? And my wife's, and we have to know how to take care of them. And we don't have anybody really to call outside of, my family and different people, but you can't always call them. Sometimes you just have to be the one that is called. And I didn't realize it, but as I was on that podcast and as I journeyed through the next 6 years of becoming a dad, I didn't know that the Just Call Dad mission was kind of growing inside of me. And it's this idea that we all want somebody to call, whether we are a loner or a lone wolf, or whether we like to be around people. The reality is, it's nice to know you're not alone in some circumstances, specifically as a dad or as a parent. And so as I'm doing the work of being a dad and doing the work of trying to train and be fit and doing the work of trying to mentally go through some things, that's the piece that really came to a head for me, was this idea that I can do all the work, but if I don't work on my mind, I'm never going to benefit from the work, because there's going to come a point where the fitness, the training hits a wall. You might get hurt, you might get bored with the training, or you might just not have time to stay as fit as you want. I don't believe in the lie that some of the dad influencers say that you have time for everything. Sometimes you just don't. You just don't. And that's the reality. You could build in 10 minutes of fitness and all these things. There are so many truths inside of there, but I think one of the lies that a lot of dads fall for is that you have to constantly go after life. Because if you go after life too hard, too many times, and continue to do the work, you're going to not really know what work is worthwhile. So there's value in pausing as well. and stopping and evaluating and saying, you know what, yes, I need to train, yes, I need to work, but sometimes I need to reevaluate to make sure I'm doing worthwhile work. And so as I listen to Jared's work and I listen to people like Jared, and I listen to their progress or their growth as a podcaster, as a dad, as a person, it's really cool. And that's what this episode is all about, because as I get excited to talk to Jared tomorrow on the episode, I've also listened back through all of Jared's content from the beginning to the end and re-listened to some things. Because I think sometimes as creators, as dads, as professionals, as people who want to do something more than just go and punch a time clock and then leave, I think that's the piece that we all really want to talk about. You know, if you look behind me and you're on the video, you can see that my desk is a mess because I'm in the process of cleaning. If you watch the next video, it's probably going to be better. That's life. You can't have everything perfect. You're not going to always be where you want to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. But also I think some dads and some people get kind of stagnant and just stay. And they say, oh, I'm not going to create content, or I'm not going to try to create the book like you see over my shoulder. Like, nobody wants to do that. I'm just going to live my life. Like, that's silly. Well, here's the reality. If you don't create it, it's stuck inside you. And something that's stuck inside you that you could create could change someone's life for the better. And that's kind of where I'm at. And that's what I got from a lot of Jared's content. He was huge motivation to me, whether he knew it or not. I'm sure he didn't know it. He's got a lot of followers on social media and a lot of people he works with. And that's kind of the piece, is that just because you don't talk to somebody every day, or they don't know they're making an influence, or you don't know you're making an influence, you could be one of the greatest influences in their life. And, you know, one of the things about it, when I listen to Jared's content from the beginning to now, I see this progression in him as a person. I listen to his story, I listen to his creation as a human, and moving all these different times that he's had to move, and businesses, and going through ups and downs, and kind of following him on his dad journey, and unintentionally kind of seeing him fail and succeed. And now I see where he's at, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, there's hope for me, right? Because some days, you know, we'll have our emotional shoes day where I look at the sales of the book and I'm excited, but then I'm also discouraged, because you have to really sell a lot of books to make a successful career out of it, you know. And it's not that like I'm trying to make a career out of selling books, but man, it would be really nice to do that, because here I'm writing a book that helps others, and it helps my family, and it helps all the people that help me create it. And that's really the goal. Like, I just want to help all these people's lives. And Jared talks about this all the time. He talks about the progress that it takes and the time that it takes and the things, and it's nice to listen to content from the beginning to the end. And that would be my hope with this journey as well, as a podcaster, as a dad, that you can watch that progression in my life, because you're not looking at somebody who's super confident. Whether or not you know, maybe express or think that I express it, I'm not. And I think that comes from a place of being somebody who wants to be better every single time. I'm not content to sit on the couch and do nothing. Yes, there's times to take pauses. I'm all for that, like I said earlier, but I like to do the work. And I think that's where Jared's motto of this idea of try harder comes into play. And, you know, I've been really thinking about that as I prepare to talk to him tomorrow, is this idea of try harder. Because try harder, one of the main reasons that I like it is because it doesn't set any expectations on you that are unhealthy. Because you get to set your own expectations. If you say try harder to you might not be the same as try harder to somebody else. But what you have to evaluate is, like, what is your try harder? Like, are you okay to have some messes that sit behind you on a desk while you're working? Whether it's an emotional desk or a physical desk. Are you okay to live a little bit in that mess where you're learning to try harder? Because we're not always going to immediately be able to try harder. And so as you do this idea and you think about this, and then you look at Jared, some of his other ideas of like kill comfort and these concepts, you know, Jared's not telling you that you don't need to rest at times, but instead he's telling you, don't get stuck. Because if you get stuck and you stop, you're going to create something. Whether you create something for good or bad, you're going to create something. Whether you do absolutely everything or nothing, you're still creating something. And that's the point that I want to make here as we kind of end this little session today, this mobility session, is that you can stretch your body, right? We can work on some different activities. One of the areas of my body that I'm trying to work on a ton is my core, because even though I'm strong, I realize I have that weak core, and I thought it was the ab muscles. It's not the ab muscles, it's those adductors, it's those small hip movers that we sometimes neglect. Right, and some of the good stretches for that, whether it's like a couch stretch and, you know, you sit and you put your foot up on the couch, or whether a really good stretch for that is laying on the ground and doing some deep belly breaths, right? So you can mobilize your body, and there's like specific exercise to mobilize your body, but sometimes we aren't specific enough to mobilize our minds. And what happens as dads, if we don't kill that comfort side of things, if we don't try a little harder, we're not saying go crazy, but if we don't, we're going to create something. And the question you've got to ask yourself is, are you content with what you are choosing to create by creating, or create by not creating? And what that means is, if you sit there, if you go there, if you stay there, you're creating a space for yourself, for your family. For me, I was in a bad space. I was so fit back in those old days that I was telling you about earlier on this podcast, in my small garage gym, fit, able to beat probably 90% or more of people in most exercises, but I wasn't content. And then I got hurt, and I went through this phase of, then I'm sad because I can't do that, because it was kind of in a weird spot in my head. It wasn't for health, it was for like well-being. And then I realized that there was shame involved in that, because I felt like there was something wrong with wanting to be fit and successful. And there's nothing wrong with that. What was wrong was that I didn't have it in the right place. You see, if we don't train our minds, we will forget why we do what we do. And we will create a space for us and for our kids and for our families where we are not the person that we want to be. And that's what I've been for the last 8 months. Yet at the same time, I never stopped and I never quit. And that's the other piece, is that you're going to have seasons of your life where you're not going to be your best. So just try harder. It's not that hard to try harder. And for me, trying harder in this last season of my life was doing a podcast, was sharing some things, was finding some people to help other people, was finding some people to help me, and most importantly, was not sitting and letting life or circumstances create for me. But instead I said, you know what? I can't control a lot, but I can control what I create. Whether somebody likes it or thinks it's incredible, or they just ignore it and they don't really care. Because that's the reality. They're probably not going to dislike the content or creation you make. They're just not going to care about it. And there's nothing wrong with that, because your audience, first and foremost, has to be you. You have to share something and create something that's going to create in you the type of person, the type of dad, the type of professional, and the type of you that you want to look at in the mirror and say, yeah, he tried harder when it wasn't easy. And you see, try harder or kill comfort doesn't just exist in the easy seasons of life. It exists in the harder seasons of life. And so as we talk to people like Jared, or I get people on this podcast that are way cooler, more experienced than me, I want you to take a moment and I want you to say thank you to someone in your life who has done the same for you. So as we move into this next season of Just Call Dad, I really want to focus on this. And like I said, we're going to kind of end here. My journey took me to a funeral yesterday, and I don't want to not share this with you. My Uncle Keith passed away last week at 64 years old, unexpectedly. He was one of the most fit guys that I knew. He'd play golf. He could beat anybody in golf. Yet he was suffering and really didn't know why. And he didn't share it with anybody. He didn't talk about it. He just kept going. You know, I've always looked up to Uncle Keith because Uncle Keith was the kind of guy who was just call dad. Just like my dad and my grandpa, somebody you could call to help you, somebody from a family who has a lot of people that could do that. And I got to thinking about how, as he laid there and I sat there and I thought about him being a dad to his daughters and his wife and the people that he left. And, you know, whatever your faith belief system is on heaven or hell or eternity, it doesn't really matter in those moments. Because in that moment, you have to feel. You have to feel that moment. No matter if you're happy about the outcome or where he is or if he's not suffering, you have to think about the legacy that someone leaves. You see, it's less about loss in life and more about legacy. And not everybody has an Uncle Keith. Not everybody has a dad they can call. Not everybody has these types of people. So I got even more passionate as I sat there yesterday about creating a space that would honor a legacy left by Uncle Keith. And my Uncle Keith is one example of hopefully many, many men who have left the type of example that other people can follow. And so the goal of the Just Call Dad podcast is to ignite a movement, to never forget to call. That in the good moments and the bad moments, don't be that person that doesn't respond to the text. Don't be that person that doesn't call back. Instead, be the person that somebody in your contact list can call. Now, I'm not saying be stressed out and answer every call, because here's the reality. That's not a good idea. But don't go through life being the type of person that waits for somebody else to pick up your call. Instead, be the type of person that's a call away. Get up every single day and commit to yourself. First and foremost, the type of person, the type of dad, type of human, the type of professional, whatever word you fill in, that you want to be today. So I'll leave you with this message from a small garage gym in a condo to a space outdoors this morning, working out with my daughter for the first time really in about 8 months, being able to move with her and play. It doesn't matter what your goals are if you don't try a little harder. Life's gonna be messy. It's gonna hurt more than it feels good. But if you don't continue to try, and you wait for someone else to call or try for you, you're going to look back with regret. So today, instead of looking back with regret, let's look back with gratitude. And let's say thank you to the trials, but let's not stay in them. Let's be a call away today from your best tomorrow. All right. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Just Call Dad podcast. We appreciate all your support. Remember to like, to subscribe to all of our different social media channels because we are here for you. Make today the best version of that day. Just call Dad.